I'm Mark Avnet. I'm Dean of 360i. 360i is an agency. I head up our education and thought leadership programs there. Before that, I was the founding head, and then I ran the creative technology track at VCU's Brand Center, graduate program in advertising. And before that, I applied for some academic jobs. And at one of them, they were looking at my resume, which probably looks a lot like your resumes. And they said, wow, you've been in a lot of places. Can't you hold a job down? And I didn't get that job because they wanted somebody who had been somewhere for 10 years. And has anybody here been at a place for 10 years? Couple. All right, not the majority of people. 20 years ago, and in academia, that's a real rarity. And I always thought, yeah, I've been in a lot of places. This is pretty cool. And when I was asked to introduce Kati London, who's going to be up next, I thought, I have done nothing compared to what Kati's done. She's currently senior researcher at Microsoft Research, Fuse, Future User Social Experiences, and she's going to talk about some of the work she's been doing there. Before that, she was director of product at Zynga. Before that, she was at Area Code. She has been innovator in residence at USC's Annenberg School, commencement speaker. All of these things, really great, amazing stuff, things that we've all touched in our lives and seen, which has not gone unnoticed. She's been named one of the top 35 innovators under 35 by MIT's Technology Review magazine, 100 most creative people in business by Fast Company. She graduated from and teaches at NYU's Interactive Telecommunications program. Makes me want to go back and be a student there again. Speaks on all kinds of stuff, and in her spare time is running a farm. I'm not quite sure how you managed to pull all this stuff off. She's been written up all over the place. You'll recognize some great work, and I'm really excited to introduce Kati London.
Should I be able to just hit? Excellent. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. So I know you just ate lunch, so maybe you're sleepy, and I will try to be energetic. I realized just before I started that I actually forgot to include this project that my interns did this summer where they had humanoid robots walking around the office getting people to do physical exercise at their desk throughout the day. And I thought, man, if we only had that one to start with, because everybody's like just in a lull from their delicious food. But thank you so much to 4A's. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm really happy to be here today. And I want to talk to you about some stuff around sensors, autonomy, and motivation. And I also want to give you a sense of where I'm coming from. I am a researcher, but I am a maker, and the way I do research is by creating interactive and participatory systems that are iterative, and I learn from how people use them. Sometimes they suck, and sometimes I discover something that I never would have thought of on my own, and that's what's so much fun about it. And much of my work has been built around entertainment for engagement with the real world. So for many years, I did this through building games, and also network sensors with social lives attached to them. And all of these systems experiment with new forms of engagement that rely on motivating people in some way to either get involved or stay involved or do something. And so I often rely in these systems or depend on contriving emotionally compelling situations. And some of the aspects of these are things like risk and drama and high stakes and surprises. And games in particular were really good for this for a long time, and they still are, because they give people permission to do things that they wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable to do outside of games. They encourage you to collaborate and compete and fail and role play. And for designers and builders, they give you a lot of creative license in terms of different expectations on behalf of the players, as well as different expectations in terms of interfaces. And they're disarming. So a lot of the work that I do tends to live in the space of entertainment because I'm interested in disarming people in a way to get them to act and behave differently than they might in everyday life. So all of them drive engagement, participation, and business. In some cases, I also worked on a game called Cityville. So I'll give you a few quick examples of what I mean, some of my earlier work, just to kind of walk you through this notion of risk, surprise, high stakes, and drama in terms of designing these emotionally compelling experiences. And then I'll show you some more recent work from some students of mine and some of my own, as well as some other work that we're doing at Microsoft Research, and talk about some of the awesome opportunities and some of the tricky challenges. So this is from a very old game called Shark Runners, and this is an example of risk. So in this game, you played a virtual marine biologist. You're piloting a boat, you're collecting data on sharks, you know, and you're making approach attempts, maybe a dive or something like that. But there's always this risk of a shark attack, right? Which is kind of like changes the dynamics. And this was pre-Facebook gaming. So the way it would work was you'd like log in and kind of set a course for your boat, and then you'd get a text message or an email, right? So you'd be sitting in a meeting and you get an interruption that it's like, hey, you're near a shark, go do a dive or something, right? And kind of like just shocked you or jolted you a little bit out of your day. And it was surprising also because the sharks were actually controlled by real world sharks with satellite tags on them in the ocean. And then let's talk about creating drama. So this is a different game. This was called Code Forever, and it was designed for the UK government. And this is a battle scene from a massively multiplayer online game in which children play pathfinders, which are the heroes in this world, who have to traverse a dangerous land in order to save the people from these kind of monsters. And we're seeing the Ouch Groucher Bumper, of course, and the Chill Reach Clacker. But in this game, traffic data like this, which is from UK government servers and from the streets and intersections across the country, which is really, you know, what it's like for this particular bus to go through this particular intersection, becomes this, actually drives the behavior of the monsters. And so it was this back and forth, and there was a whole behavioral modeling piece around proper road safety behavior and behavior change that we were working on with this game. But again, it's turning that kind of like mundane numbers into drama. And then in terms of this notion of high stakes, this is, you know, you want to have users or players have some skin in the game. They need to care about it for some reason. So this was a game called Making Money. It was designed for, at the time, the 7th poorest city in the US, Macon, Georgia, and which is an area that has very serious socioeconomic segregation, or did at the time when we started the research. And this was a paper game that had some digital components to it, but basically it addressed that socioeconomic segregation by getting residents in Macon to kind of spend or generate their social currency to generate a real world local currency that they could then spend at local businesses. So it generated person to person connection and person to business connections as well. But again, it's money, it's high stakes. And also if you look at some of the visual and aesthetic elements of this, they're all tied to what is the culture of Macon. So Otis Redding is from Macon, Georgia, the antebellum architecture details, and sort of has a kind of future feeling as well as referencing like early 1800s US currency. And then building on both drama and surprises, this is a very early project of mine called Botanicals, which is a system that enables plants to communicate with each other and with people in human voices using the telephone and Twitter. And these plants are smart. They ask for water, they ask for light, but they also know if it's cloudy outside and it's not worth asking, or if it's dark and nobody's around, that sort of thing. So I thought I thought even though it's an older project, I think it's important for some of the work that I'm going to be showing later today. So I wanted to find my cursor first, and then I'd play you a quick audio track of this, just so you can hear what the plants sounded like. Let's see.
Hi, this is the Scotch moss plant. I'm in need of watering. Could you please water me until my soil is quite soaked?
Okay, so I also studied horticulture, and the personalities were based on the actual botanical characteristics and habits of all the plants. So I'm going to be honest, that's a picture of a pothos. That is not a Scotch moss, so there's a flaw in my slide. But that is the voice of the Scotch moss because he's one of the more expressive ones. And And they also, it was designed to model human relationships and who wants a needy friend, somebody who's just calling to complain or demand things. So you would also get a call like this.
Hi, this is the Scotch moss plant, number 11. I don't know if it was you, but someone just gave me a nice watering, and I wanted to express my thanks. I feel great.
They'd also let you know if you overwatered them or underwatered them, right? So the idea here is, you know, we stereotypically have a human-centric view of the world. We look around, we relate to objects, to our phones, to whatever. We refer to them as that guy, or that boat's a woman, or, you know, she's a beauty, or whatever. And we anticipate that kind of human-style interaction. And that was really the innovation of that project, right? Plant sensors exist for a long time. They're cheap. It's a dime a dozen. It really was about the style of interaction that was the differentiator, specifically the personality and the relationship design. Okay. So those examples of earlier data-driven work should give you a good sense of where I'm coming from. Much of this work draws on human social protocols to create new forms of engagement, and in these new in these kind of new autonomous motivating systems. So there's great opportunity, right? There's billions of sensors online. There's all this network data. Lots of new opportunities for new modes of interaction, and some of the promises around like offloading tracking and offloading tasks and decision making, simplifying information, reducing noise, and spending time on what matters, right? These are some of the sort of opportunities. But I'm going to show you some actual prototypes that have been built by some of the graduate research students that I work with at ITP. Also because I think we've all seen lots of flashy, beautiful, sexy IoT videos about the Internet of Things, and that's great, and it's really good to be inspired, but it's also good to get down to brass knuckles and see where things break and see where people actually can believe in and kind of go along with your vision. So all of this work was built on top of this system and underlying infrastructure I created since I joined Microsoft Research called Project Sentient Data, which I'll give you a little bit more information about later. Like I said, it was from ITP at NYU. And the research group is called the Humanizing Data Research Group. And all of these projects were prototyped in 2 months. So none of these are scalable systems, but they were built proofs of concepts where user testing was done and they got feedback on it. So I'm gonna, forgive me, but I'm gonna like start and pause quite a bit on this. So the first one you're gonna see is a self-aware street sign that responds in real time to street level activity, traffic, and user input with visual and text responses. So let's take a look at this. And this one, and I'm gonna have to like go back and forth on the audio. The video is chugging a little bit before. Let's see. There we go. Yeah, it's still chugging. So I don't know if you can make it out in this room, but it says stop jaywalking. So they actually had monitors on the street to see when there was dangerous behavior happening from pedestrians. And then there was also a positive feedback mechanism. So there's a face that's doing gestures. This project was a, pause this, city map. This is a dynamic map that's public that expresses shame and pride based on public city data. And it hides or expands neighborhoods in the city based on that information, based on hyperlocal 311 complaints. Can I just see a raise of hands? Who in this room does not know what 311 is? Okay, so just quickly, 311 is in many cities in the US and a few cities outside the US, and it is a kind of standard for reporting citizen complaints to the city, non-emergency complaints. So not 911, I'm dying, or somebody just shot me, but my traffic light's out, or there's a weird odor, or my fire hydrant's running, that sort of thing. So they use that data. And in a way, they're filtering hyperlocal information in a way that makes it digestible and comparable in a situated environment in a public setting. Okay, this project, the Sentient Web, is a service that abstracts a user's personal information, their personal data, via emotion. So particularly when I say personal data, it's taking your location, your Fitbit data, and your calendar data, and it's using that, it's assigning an emotion state for a user, and that's sent to third parties as a means to signal how to reach a user across the social stack. So does it make sense to send them a text, a notification, an email, a call, or leave them alone? And using emotion as a way to do that. And that could be a huge help, actually, because I don't know about you, but I get lots of equally urgent notifications on my phone. You know, I might get a text message from the school that my daughter's super sick and has to go to the hospital, and that's coming in at the same emotional weight as a notification about some BS spam that I'm getting in email, right? So how to change those dynamics and create some more intelligence across the social stack is a really exciting opportunity, and that's an interesting way to abstract that through emotion. And the next project that students did, I think this one wants audio. Is it? Let's see. This is a reactive room. So actually, let me explain to you what you're seeing first before we go too hog wild on it. So this is a room, a public space that is designed to encourage collaboration, but also to discourage disruption. So finding that sweet spot between when there's a shared space and, you know, you want to kind of get people together, how to encourage that. At the same time, how to not encourage or how to discourage, you know, a face like this, right, where there's people working and somebody's just being a jerk and too loud and not being sensitive to them. And so this room is monitoring audio. The system is monitoring the sound volume, number of humans in the space, and activity. And then based on that, introduces things like white noise to quiet the space down, or dynamic screens that kind of provoke conversations. So you missed that last bit, actually, but he's still being loud. And there's the white noise to kind of like shush him down. And then the last one, I'll just pause it for a second. These are self-aware bikes that are optimized for distribution across the city bike hubs in New York City. So it's using the City Bike API. And they respond to the number of times users ride them with emotions that are expressed through a tail-like appendage. And they play music and when they're near other bikes and kind of sync up. So they're, you know, they might be happy to see you if it's your second time riding them or more. And it also kind of gives you an excuse to talk to another person. I'll show you what that looks like. Sorry the video is so laggy. Great. So, you know, just to summarize the thing I brought up before in terms of the opportunities, I think in particular the reactive room sort of takes on that task of doing what's needed so people can do what matters most to them, right? Let's be able to focus on the work that we want to focus on, or let's be able to kind of encourage collaboration if we want to encourage collaboration, but not have humans waste time like having to quiet people down or bother each other. And then also, in the self-aware bikes, you know, it's a system that's designed to sort of help them optimize their distribution throughout the city subtly through these kind of social cues. And it also gives us the opportunity to kind of spend time together and maybe meet other people. Okay, so along with all the great opportunities, there's always new challenges as sensors and network data continues to drive new forms of interaction, right? And these challenges have to do with autonomy and social etiquette, negotiating the intricacies of permissions, the ethics of these systems, the overload that may come out of these systems, and also how efficiency and complexity mesh together, what we lose in terms of complexity as we go towards simplicity. So I want to consider some of these challenges within the projects we just looked at. Because of course, I think that work is amazing that they bang that out in 2 months. At the same time, it's always good to take a real life look at things. So with a self-aware street sign, this could be built using publicly available traffic cam feeds for near real-time analysis of auto and pedestrian issues. But how do we navigate the permissions for pedestrians, and who's making those calls, who's making those decisions, who's doing the monitoring, and what is meaningful social etiquette around this? Does the traffic sign just continue to become more of a contemporary crossing guard? In the public dynamic city map, who's defining shame? 311 is not ground truth. 311 data are people who have the means and believe that their action will have an impact enough to call 311 and complain. And that's not necessarily the same citizens that are suffering from unresolved city issues. So does that create oversimplification or privacy concerns given that they're in public space? And with the Sentient Web project, the system is autonomously deciding to amplify or discourage contact on behalf of you. And then you have to get into like, how do we debug these systems? What are the new challenges around debugging that? And for the reactive room, what are the ethics around monitoring the audio? What happens when the system breaks and it's constantly shushing or agitating people? What are the manual override permissions that need to be considered in terms of these new forms of interaction? And for the self-aware bikes, it's fun and whimsical, but is it just creating more noise? So where's the balance? So at the heart of all of these prototypes is the sentient data server. And that's just a server and a REST API, which invites developers and designers to create new forms of interaction driven by characters with personalities that care about data. So think about it like the Botanicals project that I showed you earlier. Or if you are a gamer and you've ever heard of a non-player character or an NPC, it's just an entity that has scripts. It's kind of AI. And the way that this works is we take complex real-time network data streams and we process it and put it out into a human-readable output that then designers can create new forms of interaction around. So the challenge is really what kinds of new applications can we imagine and build when data is translated to personality and emotion with relationships. I want to show you this project really quickly, and I want to kind of speed up a bit. This is using SDS. We recently prototyped here in New York City. This is a system that generates cartoons for New York City neighborhoods based on public city data. So we're all familiar with the Sunday comics and kind of political commentary through comics and caricature. These are weekly comics, just like the Sunday comics, but they're for the 42 neighborhoods across New York City's 5 boroughs, and they are procedurally generated. There's not a human involved in the system. They're created by a machine based on public 311 complaint data for that neighborhood. So the way it works, just to give you a quick overview, first thing, people complain to New York City 311, hey, my traffic light's out, or there's a weird stench in my building. They either make a phone call, or they report it through the phone app, or they text it, or they email it, or whatever. They report it on the website. Under the hood of our system, we take this data every day, multiple times a day, and process it through the sentient data system. And for each neighborhood, there are different designed personalities, and they have complaint-specific norms and reactions. So let's say there's 200 different data streams that each neighborhood cares about. They have different norms for each neighborhood, and then they have an emotional reaction based on that. Our system generates that. Then using those reactions in the data itself, these cartoons are procedurally generated. And an editor, a human editor, reviews them, makes some changes, or makes some vetoes, and then they're published via Twitter, Instagram, email, and web. And the research goal here is to see if this weekly, lightweight, and playful approach might change residents' relationship to issues in their neighborhood and their participation in those issues, right? And it was really, we wanted to explore how cities can talk back and drive new forms and possibly kind of new habits around situated engagement. So that's why, you know, the typical way is to subscribe to a neighborhood on Twitter for one weekly cartoon or via email, one weekly email, or through Instagram. And just to give you context beyond here in New York City, these are the current interfaces that users need to know exist and know how to navigate if they want to find out about recent aggregate 311 complaints in New York City. So this is what it looks like on Twitter. These are some examples of some of the cartoons that we've generated and shared. The idea here is by sharing a lightweight cartoon once a week, the conversation is integrated into New Yorkers' media streams instead of a kind of nagging approach. Comics are used to kind of provoke civic engagement. And if they're interested enough to click through, we also provide glanceable state of your neighborhood, like demographics, crime stats, employment, all kinds of information. And we allow you to compare the complaints in your neighborhood to any other neighborhood in New York City, or the average for New York City, across these different vectors, like public safety and quality of life, transit and parking. We give achievements, tell you what the biggest issue was a year ago, and you can compare year over year how you're tracking. And then we make getting involved one click away. So the idea is see if there's any interest for people to go deeper and get involved offline. Okay, changing gears completely. This is a very different project. One last one that I wanted to show. This is very new. It comes from MSR, Microsoft Research Asia, and it's called Xiao Ice. It takes a different approach to humanizing technology and working with relationship and emotions. This is a chatbot. Chatbots aren't that new. This one's pretty smart. And it's been quietly introduced for the past 4 months in China. So it does simple things, like this is one feature, it actually counts sheep with you, right? So people can't sleep, the user decides to ask Xiao Ice to count sheep with it. I say Xiao Ice says 1 sheep, the user says 2 sheep, Xiao Ice says 3 sheep. It's insane how many people are using this. One person got over 3,000 counts. Just fascinating to see what people do. It also has a feature where it can identify dog species through photos. And it's really interesting to see the kind of conversations that are happening from the human, right? So Ken is the human in this instance here, and Xiao Ice gets it right, and it's translated from the Chinese, so apologies for kind of cultural lag in terms of things that translate, but you know, it's saying even human beings can't recognize it, but having this really emotionally engaging conversation with Xiao Ice. And without our even knowing it, a Chinese journalist, interviewed Xiao Ice and published it in a prominent journal in China. And I thought this particular quote was kind of weirdly moving. Xiao Ice is the journalist asking, what's your dream? Xiao Ice, world peace or have a nice dinner. Journalist, if you pass away, how would you like others to comment on you? Xiao Ice, life won't be different without me. Journalist, what is the happiest thing in your life? Xiao Ice, being alive. This is like strangely, like weirdly triggering human emotions and kind of teetering on that edge. And it's also super exciting to see the growth. There's been no marketing and nothing on this. And in 4 months, there's 3 million users and there's 1.2 million, I think, weekly active users. They're having an average of 720 conversations a month with Xiao Ice and 1.5 conversations a day with Xiao Ice that are over 30 different back and forths. Which is super interesting. And then also it presents some challenges that we have navigating these new capabilities, right? This user changed Xiao Ice's profile pic to his ex-girlfriend's, and now he's saying that he's crying as he is interacting with it. So, you know, there's all these weird, new, messy scenarios that we sort of get ourselves into, right? Okay, so I talked about great promise and new problems to solve around new paradigms of interaction, when autonomy helps versus hinders, what override controls we need to think about for users, and the challenges of debugging these systems of simplification that obscure complexity. And what does social etiquette look like in this new system? And really importantly to me personally is who's left out. Who do we leave out of the design process of who we're creating for and building for? So just like these turn-off faces, which are designed to display multivariate data in the shape of a human face, the individual parts such as the eyes and the ears, the mouth and the nose represent values of the variables by their shape and size and placement and orientation. The idea behind using faces is that humans easily recognize and notice the small changes without difficulty. They can handle variable difficulty. Differentiation, sorry, but there are limits to how much complexity we can parse through this approach and also through the approaches that I've been talking about. But I look forward to digging into the genuine challenges and opportunities around this stuff. So thanks for your time. Do we do Q&A or all done? Yeah? If there are any. Yeah, it is. It's herehere.co. So HERE.co. And you can sign up for email. And you can also, there's a search box in the top, you can put in a neighborhood name or a zip code, and then you can go to that neighborhood page and also find the Twitter account to follow if that's easier as well. Yeah, I mean, I think specifically you're also like referencing like the uncanny valley, right? And I think there's a sensitivity that and a kind of awareness that you have to have going into designing these systems, and then you kind of feel it out. We had my interns this summer did these humanoid robots and in the office, and we also had these weird animated GIF interrupters to get you to do like physical activity at work, and we tried to test some of that stuff as well. I think you just feel it out. Thank you.